Before books, before pens, before paper, there were scribes, in a land of heat and dust, where two great rivers carved life into the earth. A small boy sat cross-legged with a lump of clay and a sharpened reed. He would spend his life writing what others spoke, recording what others owned, and remembering what others forgot. Welcome to ancient Mesopotamia, not the part with kings and conquests, but the quieter corner schoolrooms with no windows, temples filled with tablets, and long hours spent scratching lines into wet clay. Tonight, we won't rush. We'll walk slowly through his world. You'll hear about his breakfast, his lessons, his mistakes, and the thousands of tiny signs he had to memorize. Nothing exciting happens, that's the point. So settle in, let your eyes rest, and as the soft sounds of history unfold, let this forgotten life carry you gently into sleep. The air is still, heavy with the quiet promise of another warm day. In the distance, long before the sun lifts its full weight above the rooftops of yore, a rooster calls once, then falls silent again. The mud-brick homes are still resting in shadow, and the narrow alleys between them remain cool from the night. A faint scent of yesterday's ash drifts across the rooftops, mixed with the earthy dampness of clay. Somewhere in this soft silence, a boy stirs. He is not a boy anymore, not truly. His legs are long, and his hands have known the feel of reed and tablet for many years. But to his teacher, and to his mother, and to the neighbors who watched him grow, he is still the boy who writes, a scribe in training, an apprentice with ink-stained fingernails and a quiet mouth. He sits up slowly, rubbing the grit of dreams from his eyes. The mat beneath him is woven from reed's ruff, but familiar. His room is small, with walls the color of sand and a ceiling that lets the morning light creep in through thin cracks in the beams. There are no paintings, no ornaments, no furniture, save a low stool and a chipped water jar. He reaches for the jar and takes a sip. The water is slightly warm, left from the night before, but he doesn't mind. He doesn't speak. There's no one to hear, and there's nothing to say. Today is like yesterday, and the day before that, and likely the day after. His feet touch the ground, a hard-packed earth flooring. He stands, stretching slowly. He listens, always, first for the sound of his mother in the next room, then for the shifting hush of the city awakening beyond their walls. Somewhere, a dog barks. Far off, a gate creaks open. Somewhere, a vendor is dragging a cart into place. But it is still early. The scribe begins his day with routine. He steps outside, into a courtyard where a small fig tree leans in the corner, and begins to wash his face. The water is cold, taken from a nearby well before the sun can warm it. He pours it carefully, sparingly, wiping his eyes and neck. A soft wind picks up and carries with it the dry breath of the desert. He dries his face with the edge of his tunic. The fabric is coarse, undyed, and smells faintly of the clay used in laundry basins. His hair is short, neat, combed back with fingers and water. His sandals are worn but strong. His reed case hangs from a loop at his belt. The stylus is inside, wrapped in cloth to keep the points from blunting. He steps into the street. The city of yore is ancient, even in his time. The buildings lean into one another, rising 2 or even 3 stories high in places, though most are simple. Mud brick walls, dry in the sun. Ladders lean against homes. In doorways, elderly women sit cross-legged, peeling vegetables or weaving mats, their hands never idle. Smoke rises from cook fires. Chickens dart between feet. He walks in silence. The The streets curve gently, not in straight lines, paths made not by plans, but by the patient wandering of generations. Yore has no need for haste. The people here rise early, work long, and speak slowly. He passes the bakery. The smell is warm and sweet, flat barley cakes crisping on hot stones. He sees a girl his age kneeling beside a row of clay pots, checking the lids. She looks up, they nod, but do not speak. Further on, the market square yawns open. It is still quiet now, though by midday it will be filled with shouting, laughter, and the haggling voices of traders. For now, only a few stalls are open. A man lays out onions. A child sweeps dust from a rug. A woman stacks jars of dates beside a shaded bench. But the scribe does not stop. He turns left at the shrine. The stone figure there, worn smooth by years of offerings, watches him pass. His fingers touch his forehead in quiet greeting. It is not a deep devotion, just habit. One doesn't walk past the gods without saying something, even silently. At last, he arrives at the building he has visited almost every day since he was small, the Ediba, the House of Tablets, the scribal school. It is not grand. The walls are high and windowless, built to keep the heat out and the sound in. There are no decorations, no flowing gardens, no soft cushions, just long benches, shelves stacked with clay tablets, and an old instructor who has forgotten how to smile. The scribe enters quietly. Inside, it smells like wet earth and dried ink. The walls are lined with tablets in various stages of drying, some freshly pressed, others cracked and curled with age. Along the far wall, bundles of reeds lie in neat rows, and pots of black and red ink sit beside broken styluses, waiting to be repaired. He takes his seat. The bench is hard. The light comes from a small opening high in the wall, and it changes slowly as the morning sun rises. The others arrive in silence. No one rushes. No one speaks unless asked. The instructor, an older man with heavy eyebrows and a voice like dry gravel, stands near the back, sharpening a reed on a flat stone. The lesson will begin soon, but for now there is peace. The kind of peace that only exists before the first words are spoken, before the first commands are given. A slow, heavy quiet, the kind of quiet that seeps into the bones and softens the day. The scribe takes a lump of clay from the basket in front of him. It is cool and damp. He begins to knead it gently between his fingers, pressing it into a small, smooth rectangle. His fingers move with practiced ease, not hurried, not lazy, just steady. The day has begun. The clay tablet takes shape with little thought. His hands remember the shape even if his mind wanders. He flattens the surface with a small wooden tool, pressing gently to ensure no bumps remain. A single bubble might ruin a line. A single nick might confuse a number. He picks up the stylus one of several. This one is for vertical lines. Another will be for wedges. Another for curves. Each has a slightly different point, cut carefully with a shell blade and wrapped with twine. He tests the edge with his fingertip, smooth, not too sharp. The instructor's voice breaks the silence like a stone dropped in a slow stream. Write the king's name. No emotion, no praise, no scolding, just the expectation that the task be done, the same as always. The scribe lowers his stylus. He carves the first symbol slowly, a wedge here, a slant there, not too deep, not too wide. The lines must be clean, even. He writes the name again. then again, each one on its own row. The teacher watches. No correction yet. Translated, comes the next command. The scribe pauses. His mind searches for the meaning, though he already knows. He speaks the translation softly, barely a whisper, more for the clay than for anyone else. Sholgi, king of yore, shepherd of the people. The words fall into the air and disappear. There is a long silence again, the kind of silence that fills the spaces between lines, the kind that weighs more than sound. Others are writing too. 10 students today, some older, some younger, each bent slightly forward, eyes focused, lips moving silently. The only sounds are the dry scratching of styluses on clay and the occasional shift of sandals on the floor. The instructor walks between them, hands behind his back. He stops sometimes, watching over a shoulder. Occasionally, a hand appears quick and rough, correcting a line, scraping away a mistake with the blunt edge of a stylus. Nothing is ever good enough the first time. That's how the Ediba works. Mistakes are expected. Perfection is not. Repetition is everything. The scribe begins a new exercise, a proverb this time. He doesn't need to be told which one. He's memorized over 100. This one is familiar. Something about a lion and a trap. He starts with the symbol for animal, then to fall, then mouth and hole. A soft lesson in caution, written for children who never saw a lion. He wonders how many have written this same line, how many clay tablets have recorded the same tired metaphor. He presses the stylus in again, careful to keep the lines aligned. The clay resists slightly, just enough to remind him that it is still damp, still living. When the tablet is full, he places it to the side and reaches for another lump. This one is drier. It will crack if he's not careful. He adds a drop of water from a shallow dish and kneads it back into shape. The motion is slow, repetitive. He doesn't mind. Sometimes the body must move so the mind can rest. Outside, the heat rises slowly. The light through the window has shifted. The smell of dust is sharper now, warmed by the sun. The instructor calls for a reading. One of the younger boys stands, holding his tablet with 2 hands. His voice shakes slightly. In the house of the scribe, the truth is written. In the house of the scribe, the world is remembered. The instructor says nothing, just nods once. The boy sits. The scribe doesn't look up. He's written those lines before. He'll write them again. He thinks about lunch, not because he's hungry yet, but because it helps to imagine the warm barley cakes his mother leaves wrapped in cloth. Sometimes there are lentils, sometimes dates, if the season is good. Nothing fancy, nothing sweet, just food, but that will come later. For now, another tablet. This one is for numbers. He carves a column of symbols, each representing a count. 1, 10, 60, 300, base 60, like always. The numbers stack like building stones. He imagines the granaries where the scribes count sacks of barley, the docks where shipments of fish are tallied, the temples where gold, frankincense, and copper are weighed and recorded. Everything is counted, everything written, and all of it in the same silent strokes that he now presses into clay. His fingers are starting to ache, a dull stiffness across the joints. He pauses, stretches them, then presses again. The instructor does not allow complaints. If your hand aches, use the other. If your eyes blur, blink and keep going. There is no reward for endurance, only the knowledge that you did not fall behind. When he finishes the column, He places the tablet on the shelf with the others. Each student has a space. Some tablets are marked for drying. Others are to be checked. A few, those with many errors, are placed in a basket to be softened and reused. Clay is patient. It forgets. The scribe returns to his seat. His back is stiff. His neck feels tight. He rolls his shoulders and listens to the low murmur of the room. One student is reciting a poem in Sumerian haltingly with pauses between each line. Another is practicing the same symbol over and over again, the sign for bread, a practical word. Bread is used more often than poetry. The instructor clears his throat. The room falls silent. Dictation, he says. There is a shift in the room. Everyone straightens. Clay tablets are placed in front, styluses ready, eyes focused. The instructor begins slowly, with long pauses between each phrase. In the 7th year of King Shulgi, they begin writing, when the moon rose high and the harvest was gathered. More symbols. The styluses move in unison. Grain was taken from the fields of Enlil and stored in the temple storehouses. It's a familiar passage, a practiced decree. The words are old, repeated for decades, maybe centuries. No one reads them now, except the scribes. But they matter here, in this place. The scribe finishes his tablet. He looks at it, once checking each line, then places it in the drying tray. He breathes in, then out. There is a brief break, 10 minutes, perhaps, maybe less, just enough time to wash his hands and stretch his legs. He steps into the courtyard behind the school. There is a well there, and a patch of hard-packed ground where students sometimes walk in circles to ease the stiffness in their knees. He stands in the shade. The light is bright now. The streets beyond the wall are full of sound merchants, shouting, animals braying, carts rolling over stones. But in here, it is quiet again. A pigeon lands on the edge of the well. It looks at him, head tilted, then flies off. He returns to class before the instructor calls him. Better not to be late. The afternoon will be more of the same. More writing, more memorization. Perhaps a small lecture on temple account records, or a demonstration of how to fold a tablet for correspondence. But he does not dread it. There is peace in the pattern. Even silence, when repeated, becomes music. The shadows grow long across the street, falling from the clay walls like soft veils. The heat, once dry and sharp, is now thick and slow. The kind of heat that settles on the skin and does not leave until the stars appear. He stops briefly by the shrine again. This time, he leaves a small pebble at its base. Not for luck, not for blessing, but for rhythm. The pebble was in his pocket tround and warm. It had weight. Now it rests beside dozens of others, left by hands over months, years, lifetimes. The god doesn't speak, doesn't move, but the pile of stones remains. Back at the school, the others return one by one. The afternoon lessons begin again, quieter now, slower. The instructor's voice is softer, his energy lower, as though the sun has pressed down on even him. They practice names, not the names of gods or kings, but the names of merchants, of midwives, of men who sell wool, or women who own donkeys. The scribe copies the list, each symbol careful and exact. He wonders who these people were. Most are long dead. Some lived outside the city. Some perhaps never existed at all. Just names written for practice, repeated by generations of students. Still, he carves their names as though they mattered, because in the record they do. Next, he's given a tablet to copy, not a blank one, but one already written by another student earlier in the week. It is filled with errors, intentional ones. This is a test. He reads each line carefully, comparing it to what he remembers. A missing wedge here, an incorrect sign there, the number 410 written where 60 should be. He circles each mistake with the corner of his stylus and rewrites the corrected version on a fresh piece of clay. It takes time. The light shifts again. A cloud moves across the sun. As he works, the room becomes quieter. Some students finish early and sit with hands folded. One is tasked with cleaning the writing board. The scribe works until his fingers are sore again. Then he finishes, places his corrected tablet on the tray, and rests his hands on his knees. The instructor passes by and gives the briefest of nods. That is the end of the school day. There is no bell, no ceremony. The students know the time by the angle of the light, the length of the shadows. They pack slowly. The styluses are wiped and stored. The clay remnants are gathered. Hands are washed. The scribe leaves with the others, stepping once more into the street. The temple priests walk in twos. Smoke rises from cooking fires in long, trailing lines. Children run barefoot in the dust, chasing each other with palm fronds. The scribe walks home, same as always, past the shrine, past the well, past the woman with the fish. She's humming now. At home, the sky is painted gold. His mother is preparing dinner, a stew of lentils and leeks, bubbling in a clay pot. The scent is rich and earthy. He sits nearby, helping peel a few cloves of garlic, slow and unhurried. She says nothing about his day. She rarely does. She trusts the silence between them. They eat without ceremony. There is a bowl of dates, carefully sliced and filled with crushed nuts. A treat. He eats 3, saves one for later. When the meal is finished, he helps rinse the bowls. The water is poured into a small trench in the courtyard, where it trickles toward the garden pots. A fig tree, a clay pot of mint, a single vine curling up the wall. Afterward, he returns to his room. The light is fading now, shifting from gold to gray. He sits on his mat and unwinds the cloth from his styluses, checking the tips. One is splintering. He'll need to cut a new point tomorrow. The reed is old. He turns it in his fingers for a moment before setting it aside. He runs his fingers across one, a piece of a hymn, another of a list of fish. They're smooth now, the markings worn by time and handling. He lies back. The room darkens. Outside, the sounds of the city soften further. Distant voices, a cartwheel turning, a night bird calling once, then twice. The moon begins to rise beyond the rooftops, pale and round and familiar. He breathes in, then out, and again. His fingers ache. His shoulders are stiff, but his mind is quiet. Tomorrow will be the same. More clay, more lines, more names. He does not dream of kings. He does not know if his tablets will survive the years. He does not care. For tonight, the words are enough. Morning comes again, not with urgency, but with a quiet insistence. The same distant rooster, the same cool breath of air slipping beneath the doorway, the same faint rustle of sandals on stone as someone passes the house before the light fully rises. In your everyday begins like the one before, and that sameness brings comfort. The scribe stirs beneath his mat. His muscles recall the stiffness of yesterday. His eyes take time to adjust to the soft gray that slowly blooms across the ceiling. His breathing stays slow, unhurried. He knows there is no need to rush. washes again, dresses in the same worn tunic, its corners patched by his mother's careful hand. The sandals are still by the door, and the reed case holding his sharpened tools is just where he left it. Outside, the fig tree is still, its branches unmoving in the quiet. The city, too, holds its breath in these early moments, before the dust rises and the calls of vendors begin. He steps into the street and begins his walk, mind not on anything in particular. There is no need for focus yet. Today will be a day of memory, the kind of memory not stored in clay, but in the mind repetition, recitation, review. The Ediba specializes in this kind of learning, not learning of wonder, but of rhythm, not of inspiration, but of endurance. A scribe does not need to be curious. He needs to be correct. By the time he arrives at the school, the instructor is already there, as always, an early riser. He is seated at the front, not looking up, hands busy with something unseen beneath the desk. The students file in, each quiet. The youngest ones still fidget. The older ones, like him, no longer need to be told what to do. He takes his place. Today begins with the tablet of the day. The instructor holds up a large clay tablet, one of many used each morning to train memory and form. On it is written a single line in Sumerian, an old proverb passed down from generation to generation. The reed is sharp, the hand must be steady. A simple sentence, but one that hides the quiet truth of scribal life. No great poetry, just a reminder that even the smallest slip can change a number, a name, a life. He copies it once, then again, 20 times, each time focusing not on speed, but consistency. Every wedge, every angle must echo the one before it. If the first sign leans left, the 20th must also. No one watches him do it, but if he fails, the instructor will know. After the exercise, the instructor speaks. Today, we write without tablets. They know what this means. Oral recitation. The instructor begins to pace. His sandals whisper across the floor. The walls, thick and silent, echo nothing. You must remember the tablet of months. He means the old Lista calendar record carved into dozens of clay fragments stored in the school's shelves. Each month with its name, its festival, its offerings. A scribal student must memorize the order, not because they will celebrate the festivals themselves, but because the tablets will refer to them. He stops, pacing. First month, a younger boy speaks, Berazagar, and its offering, barley cakes and fish for the beginning of the sowing. Second month, silence. The scribe closes his eyes and sees the tablet in his memory. Another student says, hesitantly. The instructor waits, offering of beer and dates for the festival of the river. Third, sometimes his finger will tap his knee once if the answer is perfect, twice if it is close. If he says nothing at all, the student knows to try again. By midday, the scribe has recited 5 full listsments, gods, market weights, common ailments, and the names of legal roles, each one embedded into memory, not because he finds them beautiful, but because they are necessary. He will need them all eventually in clay. Later, the class shifts to dictation. This time, the instructor reads from memory. On the 3rd day of the 4th month, 10 donkeys were received by the priest of the canal temple. No lines to guide spacing, no ink to correct mistakes. Each mark must be confident, each symbol understood. The passage continues. In exchange for 4 measures of oil and 6 of wine, simple arithmetic. He calculates the total silently and places it in the margin. Witnessed by Karamsin, son of Abum, in the presence of the scribe Enkilamasi. The name means Inki is my protective spirit. A common name. He's copied it hundreds of times, but still, it holds something pleasant in its rhythm. The exercise ends. The students hold up their tablets, one by one. The instructor walks past, eyes moving quickly. He doesn't stop at the scribe's tablet. That's a good sign when class breaks. The students stretch and walk in circles in the courtyard. A water jar is passed around. Someone offers a piece of fruit. It's a quiet camaraderie built on shared repetition, not shared laughter. The scribe does not speak. He sits in the corner of the courtyard and thinks about how strange it is to spend your life memorizing things that are also written down. But that's the way it works. The writing proves the memory, and the memory makes the writing possible. He glances at his stylus. Its edge is dulling. Tomorrow he will sharpen it again. The break ends without warning, just a nod from the instructor. No bell, no call. The students simply feel the rhythm returning, and one by one, they make their way back inside. The room has grown slightly warmer. The light has shifted again, casting elongated shadows across the smooth floor. Dust hangs lazily in the air, catching the golden light like slow rain. It never seems to settle completely, not in this place. The air always holds a little motion. The scribe takes his place again. Now begins the afternoon task, reconstruction. Each student is handed a tablet dried, cracked slightly, with symbols that have faded or flaked away. It is not meant to be legible. That is the test. The tablet is real, old, copied from the school's collection, or from a temple record thought too brittle to preserve whole. The scribes is a list of livestock, sheep, goats, and oxen. He reads what he can, then line by line, he rewrites the record, not by copying, but by understanding the form. He knows what these lists usually contain. He knows how the columns are arranged: quantity, animal type, owner, purpose, destination. He fills in what is missing. This is not invention. This is memory applied to the outsider. It would seem like guesswork, but to the scribe, it is like rebuilding. A half-raced line of poetry. The rhythm guides the hand, even if the words are gone. He carves 15 sheep, household of Ninsutu, for the monthly offering, 2 oxen, property of Luningersu, marked for threshing duty. The instructor says nothing. He watches as each student works in silence. The sound of carving dull and deliberate fills the room, like soft rainfall. The scribe's tablet is almost complete when he notices something strange. The original tablet shows the word for goat, but part of the sign is missing. At first glance, it could be goater prisoner. The difference is only a slant in the second wedge. He pauses. Both would make sense in context. Both are marked with numbers. He tilts his head, squints. There's a tiny groove where the wedge once was. He chooses goat. It's likely the correct choice. Goats were more common, but even if it's wrong, the act of choosing matters more than the answer. That is the lesson hidden in the exercise, confidence in interpretation. He finishes the tablet, sets it aside. The instructor comes by and says one word, clear, the highest praise he'll hear today. Next, they begin the tablet walk, a strange ritual of the school. Each student is given an empty tablet, smooth and unmarked. The instructor leads them out of the room into the city. They walk single file through the narrow streets of your understone arches and past temple courtyards. They pass vendors and ox carts and elderly women pounding grain. The instructor says nothing. The students follow. They arrive at the edge of the canal. The water is green and still. Boats drift by with slow effort, and boys fish lazily from the banks. Across the water, the ziggurat rises, massive and heavy, its steps worn by 1,000 pilgrims. The instructor stops. He points to a scene nearby, a merchant arguing with a priest over a broken jar. "Write it," he says. The students kneel, find space on the ground, and begin to record, but not as witnesses. As scribes, they write what they see, not the noise or the emotion, but the form of the dispute, the roles, the exchange, the likely outcome. They reduce life into lines and signs. Their task is not to feel it, is to frame. The scribe writes, 1. Jar of imported oil, shattered during temple transfer. Merchant claims loss. Priest denies fault. Witnessed by city guard. Awaiting judgment by elder of the district. He finishes the line, adds a date, marks the location as by the canal stairs. Then he looks at the water. The canal flows slowly, almost still. The scent of fish and silt hangs in the air, but it is not unpleasant. The breeze here is softer. The instructor sits on a stone step, watching the water. No one speaks. This is the quiet part of training, the part that doesn't involve instruction, but observation. Not all scribes will write poems or hymns, but they must all learn how to record truth or something like it. After some time, the instructor stands. The students rise, tablets in hand. They return to the school. Back in the classroom, each tablet is reviewed quickly. No changes, no copying. What was seen is what is written. The instructor reminds them, scribes do not see with eyes, they see with measure. The scribe places his tablet on the shelf. He stretches his back and feels a dull ache rise along his shoulders. The long walk, the kneeling, the careful carving it, all settles there, but he does not mind. He is used to it. The final task of the day is simple. Review. Each student selects one of their old practice tablets from the drying racks. The scribe picks a mathematics exercise from 2 weeks ago. It is cracked slightly at the edge, but the signs remain legible. He rereads it, checks the numbers. 32 measures of barley, 5 recipients, equal division. He quickly calculates 6 each, with 2 left over, notes it, reviews the sign for division, then the sign for remainder. Both sharp, clean, he adds. A note in the margin, 2 measures held in temple storehouse. The instructor nods once from across the room. That is the end of the day's training. The students pack their things slowly, with the familiar fatigue of practiced routine. No one speaks. Even their footsteps seem softer than they were in the morning. The scribe walks home alone. He passes the shrine again, the stone figure now bathed in the orange light of the descending sun. Someone has left a bowl of dates beside it. A child sits nearby, humming softly. He steps over a small puddle of spilled water and hears the croak of frogs somewhere in the darkening alley. The air smells of firewood and wet clay at home. His mother is weaving by the doorway. She nods once as he passes. In his room, he unwraps his styluses again, takes the dull one, sharpens it slowly with a sliver of bone, turns it, tests the edge, wraps it again. From a shelf, he takes a small practice tablet from when he was younger. The signs are wide and clumsy, too many marks, lines out of alignment, but he keeps it anyway. He places it beside the newest one. He can see the change, not greatness, just steady improvement. The sky shifts as night settles, darkening into a soft indigo. The sounds of yore begin to slow. A few voices still rise in the street's laughter from a neighboring home. The distant bray of a donkey, the quiet murmur of an old man telling a story, to no one in particular. But within the walls of the scribe's home, it is silent. He sits by the clay shelf in his room, running a fingertip along the edges of his older tablets. He keeps them stacked neatly in order of age, from the first to the most recent. Each one bears the same signs, lessons, numbers, names, lists. Nothing glorious, nothing poetic. But still, each tablet is a step, a record of progress made not in leaps, but in the tiniest of repetitions. Sometimes he wonders what it would be, like to write something lasting, a hymn, perhaps, or a temple inscription that would be read aloud during a festival, something that others might say again with their own mouths, not just with their hands. But those kinds of writings are reserved for the masters. For now, he copies what already exists. Before sleeping, he unwraps a half-used practice tablet and runs through a few symbols. Just muscle work, a curve, a triangle, a cluster of wedges that mean grain or God, depending on their tilt. He presses the stylus lightly, not to record, just to remind his hand. Then he sets it aside, lies back, and lets sleep come. Morning again. The days roll forward, like clay on the potter's wheel, slow, even identical, until they're shaped. He wakes, walks the same path, enters the Edaba at the same time. Today, a new kind of task awaits. The instructor places a stone cylinder on the central table. It is old, worn smooth by handling, but the images carved into its surface are still clear. A god arms lifted, a line of figures bowing beneath them, symbols etched in rings. This, the instructor says, is not just a seal, it is a message. The students gather close. The instructor rolls the seal across a fresh tablet to reveal the imprint. He does not explain it. Instead, he says, "Write what you see." The scribe watches carefully. He knows the signs already, but now he must describe them, not just their shapes, but their purpose, their arrangement, the composition itself. He begins, a cylinder seal, showing the god Enlil standing with arms raised. 5 figures approach, each in a gesture of offering. The inscription reads, "Property of Namtaru, servant of Enlil, protector of the western gate." He adds a short note, seal, likely used in grain administration, temple records. Another student adds a different interpretation. Seal owner may be guard or grain counter, purpose unclear. The instructor says nothing. He prefers the students to work through uncertainty. Next comes a copied passage part of a law code, not the famous ones, not yet. These are smaller temple regulations, rules about lending animals, fines for broken tools, payments owed to priests during harvest. The scribe reads it carefully. If a man borrows a plow ox and it dies under his care, let him pay 1/2 its value to the temple. He copies it exactly then, In a separate column, he writes the practical use note. Borrowed animals must be recorded with date and seal. Value assessed by grain measure. This is what scribes must learn, not just the words, but the world behind them, what they do later in the day. The instructor announces a test, not a written one, not even a memory list. Instead, he begins to read aloud a story, not a real one, not a myth either, something between. A man from the city of Amma travels to Ur with 2 donkeys and a basket of copper ingots. He enters the market at midday and speaks with a merchant of wool. The students listen closely. The instructor continues, adding layers. He offers 1 ingot for every 3 bundles. The merchant agrees. A temple priest approaches and demands a portion for the city tax. The story winds on with trade, conflict, and numbers. The students are instructed to record everything they heard, not word for word, but the facts: who, what, where, when, how much. The scribe thinks carefully. He begins to write. One man, named Not Given, arrived from Umma with 2 donkeys, brought copper, unspecified weight, entered your market, midday, offered exchange. 1 ingot equals 3 wool bundles. Merchant, unnamed, agreed. Priest demanded tax portion, quantity not defined. He pauses, remembering a number. The priest wanted to bundles. He adds that line. He finishes the tablet and adds a simple note. Transaction likely required, duplicate tablet, sealed and dated. The instructor passes behind him and stops. A single nod. The scribe doesn't smile, but he does feel something settle quietly in his chest, a calm assurance. Like weight evenly balanced. Evening comes again. Another day written. At home. His mother is tired. She rests on the mat without words. He offers to tend the fire. She nods, and he adds sticks, slowly, stirring the pot with care. Tonight, the stew is thinner, but still warm. They eat in silence. Afterward, he steps outside. The sky is cloudless. The stars shine like tiny signs, each one placed carefully in its row. A memory he cannot name surfaces. A poem spoken once by a visiting priest, comparing the stars to words written by the gods. He doesn't remember the whole verse, just the rhythm. He kneels by the fig tree. The soil is dry. He presses his hand into the earth, then pulls it back, leaving a faint imprint. His hand. Another symbol, another sign. Not on clay, not for anyone, just for himself. The wind shifts just before dawn. It carries with it the faint scent of river water, cool and muddy. The scribe stirs, half awake, listening to the quiet sounds of the city, drawing breath. He doesn't open his eyes at first. He lets the stillness of the moment sit beside him for a while. It is only when the second rooster calls out, more urgent, more certain, that he sits up. His arms feel heavy this morning, not painful, just used. Like a tool, well worn after long hours of carving. He steps outside and sees the sky beginning its change blue, pressed against silver. A single bird crosses overhead, flying east toward the ziggurat. He wonders if it flies that path every morning as he walks his own. When he arrives at the Edaba, the door is already open. Inside, the air is still thick with yesterday's work. The instructor is seated at his desk. He does not speak. He is copying a passage from one tablet to another. His hand moves slowly, evenly. The scribe stands a moment, watching. There's something comforting in the way the instructor works, something Inevitable. The instructor is older, shoulders stooped, eyes narrowed. His hair is thin now, but the hand still moves with the same certainty. Perhaps one day the scribe will copy like that. Perhaps not. The lesson today is a quiet one. The instructor gives each student a fragment, not a full tablet, just a broken piece, worn at the edges, half of the signs missing. He says only, "Tell me what it used to be." No hints, no context. The scribe examines his piece. It is curved slightly, as if part of a folded tablet. That means it was sealed, maybe legal. He sees the sign for month, partially chipped. Next to it, the beginning of the word for wool. Then, barely visible, a corner of the mark for receipt. He sketches the rest lightly on a blank tablet. 6 bundles of wool, received during the 3rd month. Recipient, temple storehouse. Witness, unreadable. He adds a note. This is likely a standard receipt tablet, folded and sealed, possibly broken during transit or storage. The instructor walks past. He doesn't slow down, but he doesn't correct him either. Later, the students sit for copying. Today's model is an ancient hymn. The instructor unrolls a tablet that is clearly not for practice. Sits a preserved piece, handled with reverence. Its surface has been cleaned and hardened. The signs are small, precise. A prayer to Nana, the moon god. O Nana, light in the quiet sky, who watches fields as men sleep, who measures time with silver breath. The scribe reads the first line aloud, silently, just inside his mouth. He copies slowly. This is not temple work. This is not an assignment. This is something close to art. He shapes the words as carefully as he can. His hand wavers slightly in the 3rd line, and he stops, breathes, begins again. The clay accepts his touch, not without resistance, but not with judgment either. As he works, the words begin to feel less like assignments and more like company. He is not a poet. He will never write such verses, but he can feel them settle into him, quiet and slow. Like dust sinking in water, the hymn takes the whole tablet. He places it in the tray with care, not for a grade, not for praise, just because. It is finished in the afternoon. The instructor speaks, not to teach, to remember. He tells a story about a student from many years ago, one who left the school to work in the temple of Nippur. The student was known for his precision, his numbers always aligned, his signs evenly spaced, but the instructor says he never learned to listen. There's a pause. A scribe must hear before he writes, and see before he copies. You do not carve your thoughts into clay. You carve the worlds. The students listen. The scribe does too. He has heard this before, but something about today makes it feel different. The idea that writing is not expression, but reflection. Not a voice, but a mirror. That night, he sits in his room with an old tablet in his hands, one from months ago. A crooked list of market items, onions, salt, dried fish. The signs are awkward, the spacing uneven. But he remembers writing it. He remembers how hard it felt. Then he places the old tablet beside the one he wrote today. They are not the same. The new one is not perfect, but it is clear. It is still. He lies down on his mat, fingers still dusted with clay. Outside, the stars begin to blink awake. Somewhere, a dog barks once, then falls silent. The house breathes. The city settles. Tomorrow will come with the same rituals, the same lessons, the same signs. But each time, the hand remembers a little more. Each time, the clay resists a little less, and that, he thinks, is how scribes are made. Not by brilliance, not by inspiration, but by the endless lesson, by the stylus, the clay, and the quiet memory between them. The temple does not rise quickly from the ground. It emerges, like a memory resurfacing after long silence. Its walls are tall, but not towering. Its doors are plain, but heavy. It is built from the same clay as the rest of the city-baked bricks, stacked and pressed, but the air around it feels different, cooler, slower. The scribe approaches just after sunrise. He walks alone, stylus wrapped in red cloth, tablet tucked under his arm, tunic clean. This is not a school day. This is temple, service. Only a few students are chosen, not the loudest, not the strongest, just those who are steady, those who remember, those who write quietly and well. The outer courtyard is already swept. A priest nods at him as he passes, pointing toward a side room. The scribe enters through a narrow doorway where incense curls along the ceiling like forgotten breath. Inside, stone floors, shelves carved from baked mud, scrolls wrapped in linen, tablets stacked in shallow bowls of sand, and silence. So much silence that he hears everything. Brush of reed against robe, the soft drip of water near the back wall, the faint creak of old clay stretching as it cools from the morning sun. A senior scribe is waiting. He does not greet him. He does not smile. He simply gestures to the table. On it lies a cracked tablet, broken clean across the middle. It is not a student tablet. This is temple record reel, used and once read aloud by someone with a voice heavier than his own. The boy nods once. He sits carefully. The day's task is not writing, but mending first. He cleans the edges with a soft cloth. Dust falls in tiny curls. He aligns the pieces, one atop the other. They do not fit perfectly. Some of the writing has flaked off, but he can see the shape of the sign's place names, trade quantities, a name that might be familiar. He dips his stylus into oil just enough to soften the edge of the clay, then presses a fresh tablet into shape, copying what remains. It takes the full morning. By midday, he has replicated the old text, not identical, but true in spirit. Every line is spaced with care. Every wedge is placed in silence. He signs the bottom with his seal, just one rotation of the cylinder across the edge, a bull beneath a star. His family mark, small, almost invisible. Then he stands, and the senior scribe inspects the work. Still, no words, just a nod, that is all. In the afternoon, he is sent to the archives. The temple library is not grand. It is not lit by torches or guarded by soldiers. It is a room behind another room, cool and dusty, where the shelves lean with age and the air smells like old clay and crushed herbs. He enters with care. Inside, another scribe older, him a list. Each item is marked by 3 signs, a code, a year, a location. His task is simple, find them. Some tablets lie flat, wrapped in reed. Others stand on edge like loaves of bread. Each carries a label, carved years ago by hands long since turned to dust. He walks between the shelves like a traveler through memory. Here is a hymn to Inanna, written in blue ink. Here is a census from Nippur, faded but clear. Here is a debt ledger, one line scratched out by mistake. He finds the 3 assigned tablets, copies their shelf signs, and carries them out. His hands tremble, slightly not from fear, but reverence. This is not school clay. These are the city's bones. Back at the table, he cleans them with a feather brush, not to polish, just to remove the sleeping dust. The first tablet is a list of offerings. In the 5th year of the Moon Lord's reign, 2 jars of honey, 12 cuts of mutton, 4 measures of sesame oil. The writing is exquisite. The wedges are balanced like steps on a staircase. He copies them onto a fresh surface knot for study, but for backup, in case the original fades. That is his role, now not just a student, but a preserver. Outside, the city moves, as always, voices rising, carts turning, wind dragging heat across rooftops. But inside the temple, time bends. Hours pass like river reeds in the current slow, unseen. Before he leaves, the senior scribe gives him one final task, a sealed envelope, small, inside. A letter written, not in Sumerian, but Akkadian. He cannot read all the words, but he recognizes the flow. It is for a merchant. It carries a date, a request. He is told to deliver it, and so, still dusty, still silent, he walks across the city with the letter cradled in both hands at the gate of the merchants. Home. A guard opens the door. No words are exchanged. He simply hands the envelope over. The guard nods, the door closes, and that is all. As he walks home, the sun lowers, brushing rooftops in orange. He thinks of the temple not as a place of gods, but as a place of patterns, a place of remembering, of preserving, of holding things just long enough so they don't disappear. And he realizes being a scribe is not about understanding the gods. It is about guarding the words they left behind. He steps through the courtyard, gate, and washes his hands. The clay comes off slowly, but not completely. Some always stays beneath. The nails in the lines of his fingers, like memory pressed into skin. The next morning arrives with gray skies and cooler air. A rare breeze stirs through the alleyways of yore, brushing past linen canopies and tugging at reed mats left out to dry. Even the dust seems slower today, settling instead of swirling. The scribe wakes with the sensation of waiting. He does not know what the day will bring, but he feels the weight of something different in the air. When he reaches the temple gates, he is not sent to the archive. Instead, the senior scribe waits for him in the eastern courtyard, where the ziggurat's shadow cuts across the paving stones like a script of its own long, sharp, unreadable. Without a word, the older man hands him a clean tablet and a wrapped stylus dipped in ash dot. This is a copying day, but not for trade, or tribute, or inventory. Today is for myth. Inside the small chamber behind the main sanctuary, the air is cooler. Thick walls hold the temperature like memory. The only light comes from narrow slits high on the wall, casting diagonal beams of pale gold. On the central desk lies the master tablet. It is old, older than the boy himself. Its corners are chipped, its center darkened from years of handling, but its symbols are still sharp-etched deep, enough to outlast careless fingers or shifting air. The senior scribe does not instruct him. He simply gestures toward the surface and steps aside. The boy breathes once, deeply. Then he reads the first line. In the first time, before the rivers were named, Enki shaped the world from silence. He whispers the words as he reads, then begins to copy, one sign at a time. Copying a myth is not the same as copying an account. Every line must be faithful, not just in form, but in rhythm. The signs must match the mood. The spacing must reflect the pace of the story. The stylus must not rush. He copies slowly. He drew the sky with his finger, carved the earth with his eyes. The waters rose to meet his voice, and the land bowed low to receive his gift. Each wedge falls with intent. The clay is softer today, perhaps prepared specially. It accepts his touch like breath to mirror an hour passes, then another. Still he copies. His wrist begins to ache, but he does not pause. The words demand steady hands, and he begins to feel not the meaning exactly, but the presence of the story, like a hum beneath his ribs, a thread connecting him to those who wrote it long before he finishes the first tablet, then a second, and by the third, his hand begins to remember the lines before he writes them. Not just read and copy, but anticipate the curve of the sign for sky, the shape of the word for deep, the strange softness of the god name Enki, carved with 3 gentle strokes. This is not just copying, this is listening. The senior scribe brings him a small cup of barley tea. He drinks without looking up, then wipes his fingers on a square of linen. He has never been told why this myth is copied over and over. He has seen it in the archives at 6, maybe 7 identical tablets, all from different years, each carved by a different hand, each slightly different. A tilt here, an extra line there. No tablet is perfect, none is exact, yet each one holds the story. The essence remains. Perhaps that is the point. As the afternoon light shifts, the senior scribe brings something new. A fragment, just one. A broken piece of clay curved, burned at the edges, barely 3 signs visible. The boy looks at it, then back at the senior. He nods once. He understands. He must restore the missing lines, not invent. Restore. He places the fragment beside his own copy, matches the curve, aligns the lines. The piece contains part of a name likely Inkian, the beginning of the word for gift. He looks back at the line he just copied, and the land bowed low to receive his gift. The fragment must be from that passage. He checks the edges again. The signs are angled slightly, different hand, older stylus, still the line matches. He marks it on a new tablet, fragment confirmed, middle verse of the 3rd passage. Burned edge suggests temple, fire. He places both tablets side by side and copies the original line once more, this time knowing that it bridges a gap, that it fills a silence, that it reconnects something lost when he finishes. The senior scribe places a seal beside his hand, the temple seal. It is larger than his family mark, more intricate, a lion beneath a crescent moon. He does not speak. The boy takes it and presses it gently into the corner of the restoration. Tablet. The clay accepts it. Just one impression, enough to mark the work as seen. Approved. Stored. The boy exhales slowly. That is the end of the day. Outside, the breeze is still cool. The scent of clay dust and crushed myrrh follows him into the streets. He walks past the well, past the fish cellar, past the shrine where the pebbles still gather in a silent pile. At home, he does not speak much. He eats quietly, washes his hands longer than usual, and before sleep, he unwraps his stylus and sets it beside the window. The moonlight catches the edge. For a moment, it looks silver. There is a silence inside the temple's storage halls that feels older than anything he has written. It doesn't press or echo. It simply is, as if the walls have learned to absorb every sound and hold it still. Today, the young scribe has been sent beyond the copying rooms, past the shelves, past the archive ledgers, even past the prayer courtyards, to a room few students are invited to. The records room, not a place of teaching, but of holding. A priest leads him in without explanation. The door is thick, carved from cedar, rimmed with copper. Inside, rows of low tables are covered in linen cloths, beneath which ancient tablets rest in sleep. He is told to help take inventory. That is all? No. Further instructions. But he knows what this means. Counting, brushing, reading, what little is visible. He unwraps the first cloth. Beneath it, 6 tablets lie together. Each is flat and round, their signs tiny and compact. Not daily ledgers. These are ritual records, likely from a distant province. He reads one line aloud under his breath. Year of the 6th moon, at dusk, 2 lambs, 7 cups of wine, a silver clasp. He records it onto a new tablet with careful hands, marks the storage code, notes the where. He works slowly, moving from set to set. Sometimes the text is blurred, sometimes a corner is gone. But even when the words are faint, the form remains, the weight, the balance, the pulse of meaning, steady even when obscured. This is what temple work means, not just creating, but conserving. A scribe is not a voice, he is an echo. Midday comes, and the priest offers him a bowl of lentil mash and a piece of flatbread. They sit outside the records room beneath a colonnade, where birds pick at the dust between the bricks. The priest speaks for the first time. You write well, he says, without turning his head. The boy bows slightly. Thank you. You copy better than you interpret, the priest adds. That's not a flaw, just something to know. Then he says nothing more. The scribe eats slowly, chewing with rhythm. It is not praise that matters here. It is permission to continue. In the afternoon, the priest takes him to a sealed cabinet near the northern wall. From it, he removes a single tablet, wrapped in oilcloth and tied with twine. This, he says, is for your eyes only. The boy takes it gently, unties the string, and unfolds the wrap. Inside, a compact tablet, dark from age, its surface, scratched but sharp. He reads the first line. It is not in standard Sumerian. It is in an older script, one used only in temple liturgy, the language of the gods. He has seen fragments before, quoted in hymns, but never a full tablet. His eyes follow the first signs before the flood. When sky and earth were still divided by silence, the god of measurement struck the dust. His heart beats slower, not faster, as if the tablet has slowed time itself. He reads further, moving sign by sign, not rushing. Each phrase feels heavier than the last, like a stone placed carefully on a shelf that may one day fall. The priest watches, then speaks again. You are not here to translate, not yet. You are here to learn its gravity. The scribe nods. He understands. Some writings are not for understanding, not at first. They are for listening later. Back in the copying room, He asks the senior scribe about the strange symbols. The elder man nods. You will learn them, one at a time, not from books, from use, but they're sacred, even the ones for barley and tax. The boy lowers his head, thoughtful. That night, at home, he scratches a few of the older signs into a blank tablet. Not perfect, not even legible to anyone else, but enough for his hands to begin remembering the pressure, the curves, the hesitations. He sets the tablet beside his sleeping mat before lying down. It doesn't need to be fired. It only needs to stay nearby, like a whisper the next day. The boy is asked to assist in a reading, not to speak, only to hold. The temple priest is conducting a purification rite, and he must read from a tablet placed on a golden stand. The boy is to prepare the stand, clean the surface, and hold the candle just far enough away to cast light but not heat. He does so without question. The ritual begins. The priest intones the lines slowly. Let the river rise and fall. Let the stone remain. Let the name return to its place. ... The scribe watches the signs, following them as they are read aloud. His hand twitches as if it longs to write. But he knows this is not the time for carving. This is the time for remembering. He watches the light flicker against the clay, and for a moment it seems the signs shift not, changing shape, but alive somehow, trembling beneath the flame. The rite ends, the candle is blown out, and the boy carries the stand back to the storehouse. No one says anything, no praise, no instruction, but something has changed. He knows it, even without words. Later, he walks home slowly. The streets are quiet. The air still carries a trace of incense. He pauses near the small shrine at the corner, the one with the worn stone and the clay bowl, always filled with pebbles. He adds a pebble, just one dot, then continues on at home. He takes out the practice tablet again. This time, instead of copying a law or a proverb, he copies the line from the sacred text he saw earlier, when sky and earth were still divided by silence. He copies it 5 times, then sets it down, washes his hands, and sleeps with his head beside the clay. The temple feels colder today, not from the air, which is still and heavy, but from the hush that clings to the walls more tightly than usual. Even the birds outside seem to chirp more softly, as though aware of what lies inside. The scribe is summoned not to the archive, not to the courtyard, not even to the small chambers where he usually copies. He is led to the inner room. Few enter here. It is where sacred tablets are stored, for reference, but for silence. Not for daily reading, but for remembrance. The door opens, slowly. A priest motions for him to remove his sandals. He steps across the threshold, barefoot. The floor is cool. The light is dim, filtered through veiled slits high in the wall. Shadows drift like smoke across the floor. At the center of the room, under a carved canopy, lies a stone pedestal. On it, a single tablet, dark as river rock, heavy, slightly curved. He has seen its shape before in illustrations, in copied diagrams, in his dreams, but never in real life. It is the temple foundation tablet, not a myth, not a legend, a beginning. The priest speaks softly. This was carved when the temple was laid, before the first prayer, before the first offering. The signs are older than your tongue. The boy nods. He kneels beside the pedestal. The priest places a clean tablet before him. No instruction, no pressure. He knows what must be done, not to copy the whole, that would take weeks. But to begin, he reads the first line slowly. The god Enlil spoke, and the brick was formed. The line was drawn in heaven and marked upon the earth. ... He breathes in the words, then breathes them out again, his stylus moving in tandem, sketching the signs on soft clay. Each stroke is deliberate, not rushed. Each sign balanced with care, as if even the slant of a wedge might carry weight beyond words. Half an hour passes, then an hour, then another. He completes 5 lines. Then he leads, not from fatigue, but from reverence. The priest takes the tablet from him without looking at it, wraps it in cloth, says, "Nothing. That is enough." Later that day, back in the lower temple rooms, he returns to familiar duties, copying trade receipts, noting the arrival of imported incense, writing the count of bricks delivered to the outer wall project. But something is different. His hand moves with more care, more intention. Even the dullest record, 3 cartloads of gypsum, sealed, unloaded at midday, feels weightier, like a line in a much larger story, like a continuation of something sacred. That evening, as he prepares to leave, the senior scribe calls him over. There is a new tablet on the table. His name is on it, just a single line, carved. At the top, it is a record of his temple work, modest, simple. Luashkir of the school at Yor served 14 days in temple copying, 14 tablets completed, 2 corrected, 1 preserved. He stares at it. This is the first time his name has been etched in official temple script, not just as a student, but as a scribe. He places his seal at the bottom without being told. The old man nods, then very quietly, "You carry memory now, not just signs." That night, he cannot sleep. He lies on his mat, staring at the ceiling. The silence feels heavier than usual. So he rises, he lights a small lamp and takes out a blank tablet. Without thinking, he begins to write not a record, not a copy, but a sentence of his own. The hands remember what the tongue forgets. He writes it twice, then erases it gently, not because it is wrong, but because it was meant to be felt, not kept. He sets the stylus down, blows out the lamp, and lets the dark return. In the following days, his routine resumes temple duties in the morning, school review in the afternoon. But others begin to treat him differently. Not with celebration, not with envy, with stillness, as though he now carries something fragile inside him that might break if spoken to too loudly. When the younger students ask him questions, he answers slowly, simply. He never raises his voice, not because he's unsure, but because loudness doesn't suit the shape of what he knows now. One afternoon, he is sent to record an oath. A merchant, a sailor, and a temple agent gather beneath the city's arch. There is a dispute over ship, cargo, missing dates, spoiled figs. Words rise. Accusations swirl. He listens. He does not interrupt. He records. 3rd year of Armersin. Merchant from Lagash delivers cargo. 1 barrel spoiled. Dispute over handling. Witnessed by 3. Settled with shared payment. He signs it, then hands the tablet to the judge. His hand does not tremble. The judge says, "It's clear. That's all. But it's enough." That evening, he passes the corner shrine again. The pebble pile is larger now. He stops, places 1 more, and smiles, just a little. There is a smell to old clay, warm, soft, and dry, not like dust, not like earth. It is more like time itself, pressed flat and forgotten, until the touch of fingers brings it back. The scribe, older now, leans over a shelf of weathered tablets. His hair is thinner, his back stiffer, his hands slower, but his eyes still read quickly. They scan the lines without hesitation, tracing names and numbers, dates and prayers. Like a fisherman pulling line across water, he does not need to speak the words aloud. He has copied them before, years ago, decades. Perhaps some of these tablets are his own, the signs carved by a younger version of his hand, more hurried, more careful, more uncertain. He lifts one now, reading the shallow grooves. 8th year of Ibiasan. 2 jars of sesame oil, 1 for the festival, 1 for the gatekeeper. He smiles. He remembers the moment, not the event, not the oil, but the clay, how it felt that days lightly too wet, sticking to his stylus. He had cursed under his breath, wiped it too harshly, and made the signs smaller than they should have been. But they held, they endured. Outside, the temple bells ring low. Even the sound seems older. The scribe has spent most of his life inside these walls, rooms of brick, rooms of stone, all holding tablets like bones. He has not traveled far. He has not fought in wars. He has not built great monuments, but he has written and rewritten and copied and recorded, and somehow that has become enough. In his early days, he thought more of recognition. He imagined his name carved into the temple gate, his hand praised by priests and merchants alike, his seals requested by kings. But the years softened those thoughts. The work remained. The recognition didn't matter. The clay didn't need to know who pressed it, only that someone did. He teaches now, not often, just when asked. The new students come with eyes too wide, hands too eager. They rush through their lines, try to make flourishes with their wedges. He does not scold. He lets them learn through slowness. One boy asks him, "Isn't it hard to know everything disappears?" The scribe looks at him a long while, then answers, "Nothing disappears. It just changes shape." He doesn't explain. He doesn't need to. One morning, he walks the edge of the riverbank before sunrise. It's not something he does often, but today, something pulls him there. The reeds rustle. The frogs murmur. He crouches near the mud and presses his hand into the soft edge, leaves a mark, then watches as the river swells and pulls the shape away. He doesn't move. He simply observes the act the impression made. The disappearance that follows, it doesn't feel like loss. It feels like rhythm, like breathing, like writing back at the temple. A messenger arrives, not for him, but for one of the priests. Still, he recognizes the name on the seal, an old student, now scribe of another city, the boy. Now a man has written a request for a copy of a hymn he once studied here. The older scribe finds it easily. The tablet is dusty, but sound. He brushes it clean and wraps it in linen. No letter added, no signature, just the tablet. He places it in the basket, seals it, and lets it go. That, too, is part of the work. That evening, he watches. The fire die down in the scriptorium hearth. The coals glow like faint stars, red and slow. A young girl of students sits nearby, sketching signs on a broken piece of clay. He watches her, not judging, just noticing the way her hand hesitates at the start of each word, then finds its rhythm. When she notices him watching, she looks up and says, "I don't think I'll ever be fast." He replies, "Then you might be good." She smiles, returns to her work. Later, In his own room, he unwraps a tablet he hasn't touched in years. Not an archive piece, not a copy, just a tablet he once made for himself. It reads, "There are no final lines, only last ones written." He wrote it on his 30th birthday. He was sure then that his greatest work still lay ahead. Now, he's not so sure, but he's not disappointed. He presses his stylus to a fresh tablet, writes nothing, just lets it rest. On the surface, then sets it aside. Some tablets don't need to be written. Some tablets are for listening. There is a tablet in the corner of the archive no one touches anymore. It is too cracked to copy, too worn to read aloud, but it remains. The scribe notices it again one morning as he helps a younger student find a ledger from the barley stores. It leans awkwardly on the edge of a tray, its corners blunted, its script faded into near nothing. Most would not even know it's a tablet. It looks like a discarded rock, but he recognizes it. He lifts it, brushes it gently with the edge of his sleeve. It was one of his first, a temple hymn, sloppy lines, uneven spacing, misspelling. He remembers being scolded for pressing too hard, for overwetting the clay, but it survived through floods, through years of sun, through careless stacking. The signs are hard to see now, upright, stable, where it can still be seen, even if not read. A visiting scribe from a northern province arrives. He's too young to have lines at the corners of his eyes, but old enough to carry a case of tools and a respectful silence. They speak briefly, mostly formalities. Then the young man asks, "Did you ever write anything of your own? Something not copied?" The older scribe considers. "I wrote," he says, "but not for others. Why not share it?" The scribe looks at his ink-stained fingers, because writing isn't always for reading. Sometimes it's just for placing something outside the body. The younger scribe seems confused, but he doesn't argue. He nods, takes out his own clay, begins copying. That is enough. On the third day of that same week, the rains begin slow at first, just a curtain of mist drifting across the temple yard, then steady, then heavier. The roof leaks in the corner of the records room. The scribe helps move the trays. He doesn't complain. Water is no enemy. It's a teacher. It reminds them that even clay does not last forever. That's why they copy, why they preserve. Not to fight time, but to greet it, prepared. That night, the scribe stays late. There are no rituals, no assignments, no visitors, just him, the sound of rain, and a single oil lamp flickering on the desk. He unrolls a thin piece of prepared clay practice. Slab, no need for firing, no need for seals. He writes, "I do not fear forgetting. I fear remembering wrongly." He looks at the line, then smooths it out with the flat edge of his palm. Clay gone blank again. Sometimes the act is more important than the result. Sometimes the writing is just a way of thinking aloud in silence. The temple cat appears that same night. She often slips in during rainstorms, half stray, half guardian. She curls beneath the table near the warmest stone and watches him with one lazy eye. He reaches into a drawer and places a dried fish skin near her paw. She accepts it without gratitude. Scribes through the world, asking little, demanding less. In the morning, a student arrives early. She's small, too young to copy tablets full of law or temple trade, but eager enough to try. She carries a broken stylus and a lump of uneven clay. He doesn't correct her. He helps her soften the clay with warm water. Only sound is the scratching of reed on surface. When she finishes, her signs are crooked and wild, but readable. He takes the clay and marks it gently, not with his seal, not with correction, but with a soft piece of linen. Out the window watches the rain let up. The puddles reflect the ziggurat in shifting ripples, not perfectly, but close enough, just like memory. The sun returns slowly after the rains. It doesn't blaze. It creeps soft and hesitant through temple courtyards and across half-dry rooftops, touching everything with the quiet warmth of continuation. Inside the temple school, the shelves have been rearranged, tablets rewrapped, inventory double-dash checked. The scribe moves carefully, now wearing an extra layer for the chill that won't leave his joints. His steps are slower, but still steady. He no longer writes every day some days. He simply observes, watches the way the students hold their styluses, watches how they forget to breathe when carving signs that intimidate them. He knows that look, he wore it once, still does. Sometimes, even after all these years, one student, a quiet boy with long lashes and ink-stained elbows, sits with a damaged tablet, a copied proverb. He who builds with haste sees the wall fall faster, but the edge of the tablet has crumbled. The final signs are missing. The boy looks frustrated. "What do I do?" he asks. The older scribe kneels beside him. "You remember," he says, "but I don't know how it ends." "Then don't end it. Hold it where it is." The boy looks down, frowns, "But it'll be incomplete." The scribe smiles gently. Everything is. In the afternoons, the older scribe walks the temple perimeter. It's a quiet route, past the incense storeroom, past the cracked wall where the moss grows, past the stone basin that hasn't held water in years. He doesn't walk for exercise. He walks to listen, to the bricks, to the ground, to the soft voice of time pulling at the seams of the city. On one wall, near the outer gate, he finds a sign carved deep and bold. Utu sees all. He touches it once with his fingers. The lines are clean, newer than most. He does not know who carved it, but it doesn't matter. The sign remains. That is enough. That evening, he pulls out a scroll knot, a tablet, a reed scroll with pressed pigment. He reads aloud, softly, to the oil lamp flickering on the desk. The moon hangs low, watching men forget. The river runs backward in dream. The clay remembers better than the mind. He doesn't know who wrote it. He suspects it was a scribe, long dead, whose name has crumbled off a seal somewhere. Still, the words remain. He copies one line onto a small clay scrap just for himself. The clay remembers better than the mind. He sets it on the window ledge where the wind might touch it. One morning, he finds the temple cat asleep on the stack of broken tablets. She doesn't move when he sits down, just flicks her tail. He reaches for a cracked piece of clay near her paw. It's an old delivery record to crates, 20 jars, 6 measures of fig wine. There's nothing sacred about it, nothing poetic, but it was needed once, and for that it was carved. He places it in a new tray marked preserved for study. The cat stretches, yawns, and sleeps again. He begins to sort through his own work, not the temple copies, not the hymnals or the receipts, but the personal ones, the thoughts, the sayings, the fragments written late at night. when the world was too quiet. Some are clear. Let stillness be a second kind of speech. Others are cryptic, even to him. Rain does not forget. He doesn't fire them, doesn't store them, just smooths the surfaces one by one, letting each return to blankness, a kind of release, a kind of peace. That evening, a student returns from another city, now fully grown, now a teacher himself. He greets the old scribe with respect, but not formality, like an apprentice greeting an old potter who still shapes clay, even if no one watches anymore. They sit in the scriptorium without saying much. Then the younger one says, "I still write your way." The older scribe doesn't ask what he means. He only nods. You still remember the weights, of course, but breathing before the curve, yes, and the pause before the seal, always. They say nothing else. The oil lamp burns low. Outside, the stars blink behind a veil of wind. The fire in the scriptorium is smaller now. Only one log. The coals speak in slow whispers. The old scribe sits near the warmth, his hands folded in his lap, eyes resting on the shelf of blank tablets. He doesn't reach for one. He's not here to write today. He's here to remember, but even that is softer now. Less like looking back, more like being surrounded by old breath, still held in the air. A student enters quietly. She carries a basket of clay. She's careful with her steps, but he hears her anyway. "You can come closer," he says, not looking. Up dot, she does, sets the basket on the table. "These are for the new hymn copies," she says. He nods, watches her unwrap the slabs. The clay is smooth, pale, fresh. She will shape prayers into it soon. She pauses, unsure of what to say, then asks, "What happens when we're all gone?" He doesn't answer right away. Then, softly, "The clay will remember, not who we were, not what we meant, but that we were here, and that we pressed the signs with care." She is silent for a while. Then she presses her hand briefly to one tablet. A faint print, not a mark, just a trace. Then she wraps it again and leaves. The scribe looks around the room. There are cracks in the wall. Now the shelves lean slightly, but the tablets still rest, waiting, even the broken ones, maybe, especially the broken ones. He walks to a side table and lifts one of his own earliest works. It is chipped, wobbly, the line spacing uneven, but the words still carry meaning. The gate opens, the wind speaks, the day begins. He traces the edge with one finger, not to read dot, just to feel the grooves, to know they're still there. That's all memory is, in the end, not story, just texture. Outside, the wind picks up, dust drifts across the courtyard, the banners sway, a reed. Flute plays in the distance, barely audible, a practice, melody. Someone learning the pattern, trying to find their place. He returns to his desk. There's one last tablet he hasn't finished. It's not a message, not a copy, just a collection of lines, started long ago. Fragments, thoughts. He reads them now, line by line. The more you write, the less you need to say. Even gods forget their names if no one speaks them. The best ink is silence, shaped slowly. He lifts his stylus, not to write more, just to underline the final line. Once, then twice. He smiles, then places the stylus down beside it. The seal. He doesn't roll it across the clay. He doesn't mark the end. He lets the tablet stay, unfinished as it should be. Later that evening, the light dims behind the ziggurat. Shadows stretch long across the temple floor. The cat curls again beneath the table. A student lights a lamp. Someone chants from the east hall. Faint, steady ritual. The old scribe lies down on his mat. His hands rest beside him, open. His eyes close, and the clay waits, quiet and still, just like always. And now the signs are quiet. The clay rests. The scribe sleeps. His hands no longer shape symbols, but the memory remains somewhere. A tablet still waits in the dark. Its meaning not forgotten, just patient, like breath, caught between centuries, like silence, pressed softly into earth. You've walked through a world of dust and dream, of prayers carved by candlelight, of names whispered in temple halls. Now let it all fall away. Let the ziggurats fade into the mist. Let the ink dry. And the stylus still. Close your eyes. The story will wait. Time is slow here, and sleep is sacred to know they're still there. That's all memory is. In the end, not story, just texture outside. The wind picks up. Dust drifts across the courtyard. The banners sway. A reed flute plays in the distance, barely audible, a practice melody. Someone learning the pattern, trying to find their place. He returns to his desk. There's one last tablet he hasn't finished. It's not a message, not a copy, just a collection of lines. Started long ago, fragments, thoughts. He reads them now, line by line. The more you write, the less you need to say. Even gods forget their names if no one speaks them. The best ink is silence shaped slowly. He lifts his stylus, not to write more, just to underline the final line. Once, then twice. He smiles, then places the stylus down beside it. The seal. He doesn't roll it across the clay. He doesn't mark the end. He lets the tablet stay, unfinished as it should be. Later that evening, the light dims behind the ziggurat. Shadows stretch long across the temple floor. The cat curls again beneath the table. A student lights a lamp. Someone chants from the east hall. Faint, steady ritual. The old scribe lies down on his mat. His hands rest beside him, open. His eyes close, and the clay waits, quiet